think I see us on Twitch.
I see a notification on YouTube.
Yeah, we're on YouTube.
All right, welcome back. And we have gotten rid of that stinky Stevie Stowbridge. Let the real show begin now.
I'm right here, Greg.
Oh, sorry, darn it.
Quick, hang up on him.
Wasn't he fired?
Kick him off.
All right, guys, we are going to go start off with George and his assembly language. So let me get the intro up, and then George, it'll be right off to you, okay? Here we go. All right, we are now back with George. Take it away, George.
All right, pop me up there on the screen.
All right.
Is my screen showing yet?
Spotlighting now for you. No, maybe. I must have hit the wrong button there. See, now Stevie goes and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, I think we might have to hire him back.
Yeah.
We can't do that. He wants more money.
Yeah, exactly. All right, George, where are you at? I don't see you showing up yet.
I'm there.
Have you started screen sharing yet, George? Or
His camera's
I'm
not live.
not sharing screen. I just take you my whatever he did, my whole video he's using.
Oh, there we go. That's weird. Why is he not showing up?
We're getting buffering on YouTube also.
I don't know. You have the magic buttons.
That's really weird. Okay, well, let me try something here.
we're that smooth, folks.
All right, there we go. Now we'll try this again. There we go. We got it.
Right, here we are. We're back. Okay, assembly language programming and the key word here is beginners. Okay, we're not going to do video syncing. We're not going to do bit banging on the various chips and stuff like that. This is for beginners. So people who are some of the previous talkers, presenters, they can take a rest now. And what we're doing today is this year I put this out on the Discord. Okay, basically what we're going to do. We may not get to all of it. We may not even do all of it. I just want to, so that's what we're doing. So I got a whole bunch of screens here. I got to find out where they are again. Okay, this is correction of last week's what we did last week. Oop. Okay, last week there was a typo on this screen here. This one bit wasn't highlighted. I fixed that, and we never did get down to the very, very bottom page. Okay, which is a very important page. Right? We'd always talking about branch equal, branch not equal, et cetera, et cetera. And the condition code register is what you really the results come in. When you say branch equal or branch not equal, and there's a whole series of different flags in the condition code register. The main one we want is this is 0, 1 here, okay? When you do our compares, we've done it. Remember, we're just doing these basic compares and branch high or branch low or branch equal. It's this 0 flag is what we're looking at. It's either going to be a 0 or 1, and it will branch accordingly. There's a lot of other things there to look at, but we're not nearly close enough to talking about the other flags in there. Other two we might talk about here is the interrupts. We're not going to do interrupts, but I thought it'd be, you hear a lot about this in different people talking about the interrupts, okay? And there's two of them. There's a fast interrupt and a regular interrupt. And here's what you do to disable the interrupts. There's the instruction. And if you remember in the macro lab, I put in there a macro that would disable for you. That's the instruction it does. To turn the interrupts back on, that's the instruction it does for you. So much for correction from last week. Next, I need to, next screen is, I got a lot of screens here. I want to go over something from last week, if I can find it. We were talking about different things. This might be some nostalgic stuff, okay? Remember, I started on this stuff in 1968, believe it or not, is when I started programming. There was no CRT tubes. Everything was on a terminal. And in the early 70s, some of the terminals were now here primitive, okay? Fred Flintstone type terminals. Again, remember, no screens, okay? And all this stuff you see in this lower part of the ASCII table is stuff that I was using on the communications and the controllers and in the actual terminals. And the ones in front, like you see a lot of stuff when you're programming, you always see carriage return line feed or line feed carriage return. You always say, well, what is that? Okay. Well, the terminals I worked with, the one in particular was it was an IBM 1980-9 terminal. And it was a typewriter. Okay, remember this IBM Selectric typewriter had the ball, whenever you typed, the ball would spin around and bang on the paper. Well, that's all the 1980-9 was. It was that glorified Selectric ball typewriter with a 75 baud modem hooked to it. There was no intelligence whatsoever. Whatever functions you had to do on a terminal had to come from the mainframe. So the carriage return line feed is just like a regular typewriter. For I don't know how, if you're old enough to remember, a regular typewriter had a little handle and you click it over one little bit and that pushed the paper up one, and then you pulled it all the way back to the left. That was the return. Well, to do that on this terminals, you had to put out both of them. One of them you had to do a line feed, okay, and then the other one you had to do the carriage return. The other piece of the carriage return was, if I can get down here to the bottom, was this number 16 down here, synchronous idle. We had just always called it idle because that was we had to put out, and I don't remember the exact number because this was, gosh, 40 years ago. We had to put out, and I think it was like right around 17, 18, 19 of these idles in a row. And that was the amount of time it took from that carriage, that ball, to go from the right-hand side of the paper all the way back to the left. So you did a line feed and a carriage return, you had to put in idles. Otherwise, there was no intelligence, so you had to do it. This nostalgic, and I thought I'd mentioned it last week, but a lot of people never knows what all these funny looking things are in this left-hand column over here. Well, this is the ASCII table, and before that, this is not the table we used. We used a table called EBCDIC, and that was Extended Binary Coded Decimal Interchange Codes. It was an IBM thing built back in the 60s, and you look it up on the internet, and it'll really scare you. But anyway, that's what all these low-order things in the ASCII table was used for. Was all for used in them, that era of stuff. You get up here like number 7, you could ring the bell. If you had the shift, there's shift keys in here someplace. I don't see them. Here we go. Shift in. There was a shift in and a shift out right there, 14 and 15 hex. If you wanted to shift up, go to uppercase and lowercase, you sent them out across the line. So, okay, enough for nostalgic stuff. As if anybody liked it. Okay, now we're going to go to programming, what we're going to do this week. I have to find this image over here. Okay, in your basic Color Computer 1, Color Computer 2, Color Computer 3, in the documentation, little manuals, little folders you got with it, it gives you these graphic character codes. that if you punch some codes in, I think at the top of this, it might have had well, someplace there was an example. If you put in this code plus 128 or something like that, and plus the color times 16, et cetera, in this pattern, you'd get this to show up on your screen. Well, we're going to try to use them, and we're going to use this upper left-hand corner, upper right-hand corner, and I don't know which other ones we're going to use. Maybe we're going to use 4. We're going to make a little block. And look at the difference here. You see this number 1 is an upper left-hand corner. The color would be the white square. We can change that color. So we're going to use this lower one down here. We'll change the color of the white. Oops, I'm wrong. We'll change the white there, and it will stay the black in the center. So we're going to work with blocks today, moving blocks around the screen. All right, so I've got to. I got too many screens here. First thing I'm going to do is run I already got a program loaded in here, and we'll run it. Okay.
We don't see your emulator right now.
Oh, I forgot to transition over to it.
There you
Thanks. There you go. Yep, I forgot to transition it. Okay, this little basic program I wrote. Okay, the graphic codes that I took. We're going to use these 6 codes in the program that we've written here. And the C after the color and after the $sign is the color. So, the cursor doesn't show up very good on when I'm on the main emulator. But anyway,
This is another case where hex works really, really well because there's 16 graphic blocks, which is perfect for hex because there's 16 digits.
Yep.
So in decimal, you'd have to do all this math to figure it out. But in hex here, you just change that first character from, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F, and that's your colors.
Yep, that's what we're doing. So in this example, they've got a C in the first one of each one of these, so all of them are going to show up as white. And believe me, when I'm running on the emulator and the RBG and the composite, either one, none of them seem to ever match from time to time. So if they show up white, we'll be in great shape. So anyway, if we just change this C to an A, it would show up as blue. Okay, so let's. Okay, and that's what a block is. We're going to use 6 of them characters: the upper left, the upper right, the 2 mid ones, and the 2 lower ones to build a block. Okay, and that's what a block looks like right there. We're going to move that guy around the screen, or we'll elongate him and put a bigger block. And I'll show you, here's the final result when we're done. Okay, we're going to move that thing around and size it up and stuff like that. That's what we're going to achieve with our assembly language program today. And believe it or not, this program's only a little over. The code itself, the executable code, is only about 110, 115 bytes long. So let's try and find other. Problem when you have so many screens to show. Okay, I'm just going to show you the assembly language version. I'm not going to show you the raw ones before it's done because everybody seems to think that this white screen shows up a little bit better. And there's really two programs here. I got one is the actual code, and another one is the data table that we include in here. But as usual, we're starting out the same way. We're going to use that color computer includes that we've been using in the past. I have, I guess I should show that. I did make some changes to that particular file. That must be in Notepad. I added the colors into that same file, that include file, so it's in the zip file I put out there. I put in these colors here. It's used for the low res screen. And they all start with underscore because other places I had already used underscore black. So it's underscore black equates to 0, etc. You get down here, you can see all here, like the white one was at C0, I showed you before. blue is A, the red is B. So we're gonna use them, put them into each one of our characters as we put them on the screen. I'll go back to our other actual program. Takes me a while to find the screens on both. I got two screens, so I got to find them on both of them. All right, we're going to include our include file, which again, we've got it turned off because it prints out a lot of stuff we don't want. All right, we got tables like we've been using in the past, arrays, whatever you want to call them. And this one here is 3 bytes long. It has a column, it has a row, and the character. And the length of each one of them is, let's say 3. We also have, we're going to be using a user stack. Okay, there's a system stack. We never see with the instruction push S. There's also a push U. We're going to use that user stack today. So we're going to push it up a little bit higher in memory, what we usually do. We're up at hex 25. Our actual code, we're going to, again, arg it down to low at 1000. And like before, we're going to branch to begin, which is here, because I've got some things up the front that the basic program will be able to change. We've got a basic program that will be able to change the delay speed. We'll be able to change the color. It defaults to white now. And like we did last week, we also have a place for a patch. And we'll talk about the patch and look at it later on. We have a one-time switch again for one time pass through a certain routine. We don't want to do it on the first time through. Starting our program, we're going to clear that one-time switch out. It's already defaulted to 0, but we're going to clear it out, and I can explain why, or I will. We'll load up that U register with that stack address, and we're going to load up the block table. So, all right, before we do any more code, let's go look at these tables. Okay, I'm going to include, and this is a separate file. Okay, it's called blocktables.asm, just to include it. And it's going to arg at 1100 hex. Okay, and the block table has, I think there's 25 of them in here, 2 byte entries that are addresses to the other part of the table. So this is in a sense, a double array, if you will. So it's the first pointer is to the array called column 45, which is right here. And in this table here, we have an FCB, which is a byte table. We have a column, row, and character, as we defined up at the top of the list here. And that's that upper left block character. Okay. Now here, I put a note in here, character has color added later. Example, here our character is a 0E, and we're going to OR that color into that character right before we put it to the screen. The next entry is the lower left column, row, character. The next one is the upper right and lower right, and this ends with hex 00, so we can be able to tell when we're going looping through here, we'll be able to tell what the end is. We have the next display. It's basically the same thing, other than we've added these bids, so we can elongate that block. So we got.
So these are the different sized boxes you showed on the little video demo.
Yes. Okay. We'll put these here. The block will be able to throw. Got mids for the left, and we got mids for the right, and it goes on. And there's a lot of these. Okay, and this is a lot of stuff. This is a lot of copy and pasting because we're moving one column at a time. Notice here, we go column 4 and 5, we go column 5 and 6, 6 and 7, etc., all the way down to column 29 and 30. So we're going to go completely across the screen, moving one column at a time, and changing the size of the block. It goes big and it goes little, and then it just stays. You can see there's a lot of code here. This is a lot bigger than the actual program itself. It goes on and on. We started at hex 1100, and down here we end up at 1580s. Okay, so that's a lot of code. There's better ways of doing this, but remember, this is for beginners, so we're gonna just hand code each one of these entries. You could build these tables on the fly when you come up one time, but it's still gonna take the same amount of room, but you could, instead of hand coding. But in our block table, each one of these points to one of them. This is a design table, I guess you want to call it. That's what that block looks like. We have a pointer to it and a pointer to the next one, the next one, the next one, so on and so forth. So we get done, we've got all this, we got that switch, our U stack, we've got our block table loaded. And now we're coming down to the main loop. The very first thing we're gonna do, we loaded X right here with the block table. And we're gonna go load Y with what X is pointing to. Okay, X is pointing to the block table. It's pointing to right here, 1100. So it's going to load this 1136 in the X register. That's the very first thing it's pointing to. And we do a branch equals done. Is it equal to 0? If it is, we're done. That's what the branch equals, okay? Again, it's not equal to 0. If it's equal to down here, that would be the end of our table. So we're on the very first one. It's not equal to 0. I'm doing a lot of going back and forth here, but it's not equal to 0. If it was, we'd go down and we'd be done. Next thing we do, we're going to do a branch subroutine to a little bitty wait routine, because if you don't put this wait routine in there, it puts it on the screen and takes it back off almost as fast as you get it up there. You don't even really see it. So we've got a little loop in there to slow it down. Then we're going to test our one-time switch. Okay, remember we cleared it, so it has zeros in it now. So it will do this time, this particular time, the first time through, it is a 0. So we're going to branch around this, restore the previous screen instruction. Okay, we don't have nothing to restore because we didn't have put anything on the screen, so we should not try to restore it. So we do the skip, we come down here, and then we're going to increment that one time. So next time coming through here, one time will not be 0, we'll have a 1. Now we get to the enter loop. Now, if you're a basic programmer, main loop would be for I equals 1 through something. The inner loop this would be for J equals something. That inner loop is a loop within a loop. So we get to this loop here, we're going to test that entry, because remember, we loaded this up here with what was in X. That is a pointer to our first entry, which is at this 1136. So here's our first entry in that table. Column, row, and character, our upper left-hand character. Back up here to inner loop. And test Y is at the end of the table. No, it's not, because it's not 0. Okay, if it was a 0, we'd get out of this routine. We'd have all the characters of that particular block printed on the screen. So the next thing we're gonna do is branch subroutine print character. Guess what? Same one we've been using for 4, 5, 6 weeks. We've got that same print character routine with a few mods to it. Calculate the position of where we're on the screen and put the character, take what's on the screen, save it, and put a new character on there. So coming in here, we're going to save some registers. And after going over this code, I looked through it again this morning. Didn't need to push the D, but it doesn't hurt anything. Okay, we really just need to save X and Y. Load up our column. Okay, which is the very first thing. And then here I got a little thing in here that says subtract 2, and for a note it says oops. What that is, I put all this together, column 4 and column 5 for this first block. When I got it all done, I was pretty far to the right, to the edge of the screen, so I wanted to move it over 2 columns back to the left. Well, I could have come in here and changed this one here to 2, this one to 2, this one to 3, and this one to 3, and went through each one of these, and changed each one. And I said, no, I'll cheat. So I cheated. Subtracted 2 from each one of the columns as we come into the routine.
So you're adjusting your table on the fly, basically, to save a lot of retyping.
Yep, I cheated. I went ahead and said, I'll just fix it right here. And I just really noticed it when it was done. So it's okay to do that. And again, we're going to clear A, which means now D has 0, 0, 2 in it. We're going to push it D on the stack. And I think some people may or may not be having problems with this pushing and pulling and saving. We're going to talk a whole little segment right here at the end about that. We push that 0, 0, 0, 2 onto the stack. We load up our current row, load the length of characters on the screen, which is 32. We do our multiply. Then we add what we pushed onto the stack back in. Okay, so we got our column, we got our exact position on the screen now. And this plus plus will bump to the stack. Don't worry about that now. We'll look at that later. I got a good, I think a good drawing for it. Then we get the beginning of our screen, and then we actually bump X register by what we calculated before. Now we're actually pointing to the exact spot on the screen we want to do something. All right, we'll load A. Here the note says get what is there now. Whatever on the screen, we're going to load in A. At this point here, we're going to push U. Number 4, these other ones up here was push S. That's for the system stack. U is for the user stack. We're going to push that the X and A, which is our previous address and the character. We're going to push them to save it for later for the restore. Now we're going to load up our character that was in our table. We're going to OR our color, which happens right now. It happens to be white. We're going to OR that into our color, and we'll store that character to the screen, which is like doing your pokes, basically. Next thing we do, we're going to go back. We're going to pull all the registers we pushed before, plus the program counter. Now, I don't know, I probably didn't talk about this before, but if I take this comma PC off, we'll talk about that later too. If I take that off, and what we have been doing before, we could have had a RTS there. We could have done a return sub, but to save the extra cycles, we just commonly just put it coming at the end there.
Yeah, that's a speed optimization, and we actually use that a lot in Nitrous 9, and a lot of games do this too.
Yeah, and everything before we did the return cycle, and every one of these subroutines in here, you'll see that I've used this here because I've just experienced over time. It's you save a few cycles and you just get used to it.
Yeah, it saves you a byte too, so it makes your code both smaller and faster. So it's a good technique to learn.
Yeah, and again, this is for beginners. We're not trying to save cycles. We're just pushing some stuff to the screen, but it's good practice to get into. Right, so we've put where was that? We put our character on the screen. Right, we did where's that? Right here. We did our branch subroutine. We've got this character on the screen. That was the very first character in that block of, in this case here, 4. Right, now we're gonna bump the Y register to the next entry in that block. Right, we're going from this entry here. Going to bump it by 3 to this entry here. Now we'll be pointing to the lower left block. Okay, that starts with the same thing, column 04. Because when we load that up, right here, we loaded up the item length, the Y plus the 3. Then we branch to the inner loop again, which is right here. The first thing we do is we test like we did when we come in, and we test to see if that's a 0. Well, it's not. It's got the next column number, so we're not done. Guess what? We go branch. We put the character on the screen. We go through the same routine. We store the previous, put the new character on there, and go through the loop again. We're going to go through it 4 times. This one, upper right, lower right, and in the next one we hit this end marker here. Which, last week I think might have confused people because I was using a higher order bit as being the end, and I think for our beginning stuff we just use the zeros. We'll take the extra 3 bytes and use them. Okay, we finally get back here and we do our test after we got all 4 characters on the screen. Is this one equal to 0? Yes, we're done. Go to done 2. Done 2 is going to take our pointer in our main loop. Okay, if we were doing our for I equals, this will be our I loop. We was bumping to the next block and branch to the main loop. Okay, well, we'll look at that. Here was the first one we looked at in this table. We're going to bump to the next one. right? It's not a zero because it's a real entry. So we branch to main loop, and we'll load up that block address. Was it a zero? No, it's not a zero. Do our wait. We're going to do the same thing over and over. The only thing now, after the first time, the second time through, we're doing this test one time. Well, it's not equal to zero anymore, so it's going to fall through to the next instruction, which is a branch subroutine to restore the screen. So we'll go down here to clear previous. Okay, now here's where I got a patch in here. We'll talk about it later. I just put the word patch in there. When are the symbols, I'll know go to basic program and know where to get to it. The first thing it does, it's going to push and save our current registers because we're using them out in that routine. So we save them, and now we're going to pull off of that user stack. Okay, there's our U. We're going to pull 3 bytes off the stack. Remember, we saved the address and the character that was on the screen. We pull them off the stack. We load it. What we're doing is putting them in register X and register A. We store whatever A is in X, and we've restored that byte that we've previously had put characters in. We compare after the, well, again, we're going to look at the push and pull. After the pull, the stack, we pulled 3 bytes off the stack. The address of the stack will be decreased by 3. Okay, and we're looking for when we get back to the top of the stack, our 2500. Okay, you can see over here, that's what it's looking for. So it's going to, we've pushed 4 characters onto the screen, so we're going to have 4 of these restores to do. If it's not equal to 2500, go back to the clear loop, which is right here, pull another 3 characters off of the stack, store that character, keep through this loop until we find it. Once we're done, we'll restore register X, register A, and a program counter, and that's with our clear loop. We've restored the screen for them 4 characters. If we got 8 characters, 10 characters, or 20 characters, we're going to go through that loop and restore the screen. So we did a clear the screen, and the rest of it, again, is repetitive. Okay, go back through, look at the next set of entries in here, the next one, and they're each pointing to a set of these displays of these blocks over and over and over again. So again, the code is, so we argued it at 1000, and the end of the code is right here, about 1075 hex or 75 hex, which is about 110, 150, and 120 bytes as far as the actual, that code. The table is 400 and some bytes long. Okay, so let's go back over here and execute it again. Okay, this is what that particular thing is doing. Okay, not exactly the fastest game in the world with rockets and stuff going on, but for the beginner, you learn how to move more than before. We was just doing 1 character at a time, if you recollect. Now we're doing a series of them, and each one of them that changes in size. And there's no video syncing. There's no, it's just putting something on the screen. Now
and you're using the stack here because the stack you can vary in size. So it's not like you have to reserve like the maximum size box every time, even if you're only using a small box at the beginning of the animation. And that way it just keeps adapting to the size of the box to store what was underneath. And so you can restore it after when you draw the box on the next frame.
Yeah, it just takes and puts out there as many characters you put out there. It just pushes them on the stack, and we'll take them back off. Right, and we also put together a basic program because we're not at a point where we haven't even begin to think about reading stuff from the keyboard other than 1 character at a time. But as far as reading a lot of stuff in and manipulating it from ASCII character to hex, we're not there yet. So we're still in our basic program to do this. All right, what color do you want? Now I just put these in there: red, blue, white, yellow, and orange. Now Sometimes they match up in the emulator and sometimes they don't. Let's try the red one this time. And with speed, I'm gonna do average speed, I think is probably about a 4. Again, it doesn't look too red to me.
Yeah, you'll probably have to change the default palette because you can type RGB for RGB colors and CMP,
Well,
and then depends
yeah.
on your emulator setup.
Yeah, but Curtis, mine is altogether different because I've manipulated the color palette so much under my system.
Oh, okay. You're not running stock anyway.
No, nothing even close to stock. I can get there, but that's okay. Just assume that was. And we could put blue in there, and we could slow it down. You can see how they, and that's all this thing is doing. Or if you just type in execute, it will take the last things we put in there. It'll go across slower. So it's not rocket science here, but for a beginner, I think it's something you can actually sit and play with and change, and hopefully understand what it's doing. Now, if we do the white one, okay, our outline was white on the white screen, it doesn't show up. But if we do it on the other screen, there it shows up. So it's something for the play. I'm going to do it one more time. Now you can see what we did. We had a data table that we took the information from the column, row, and the character, and we did something with it. Now we could something different once we got there. As opposed to having that table, and you wanted to move this character around, you could put some calculations in there, and on the fly change row column. You could go up one row, down one row, right? Like we did with the other things we did with the arrow keys a few weeks back. We do the same thing with this whole block. Now we know how to get a block of characters on the screen and fix the screen. It would work. And believe it or not, this thing does restore the screen. It's doing all that stuff and restoring at the same time. Now we had, I need to look here. We have one more thing. We had the patch in there, right? Somewhere down in here, I got some code, okay. All right, I patched it not to do the restore. How's that for a nice design? All I did was when it entered that restore routine, I just put a hex 39 in there, which was basically
A return from subroutine. So basically, you're skipping the restoring routine entirely.
If you look at here, the cursor doesn't show up too good on the on Zoom, but line 310. Well, I figured out the line about 300. Figured out exactly where that patch place was, and we're putting a hex 39 and return sub in there. Okay, now down here at 400, we're doing basically the same thing. And we know that instruction, that push instruction was at 34, so we're going to restore. We can restore that. But if we leave it this, okay, 300. Okay, we'll get that design. Now what's cool is if you do a run 400, it leaves what was on the screen, so it never erases the bad stuff that's on there. And now it's all fixed back. Okay, just something to play with. I think a beginner should have some fun using the block as opposed to just using the one character thing. Right,
yeah, so if they change the data table itself there, you can change like, the block so it's say wider instead of taller or.
Oh yeah, I just out of clear blue sky, I just picked one way to do it.
So that'd be a good exercise for the viewer who wants to try this out. If you want to, like, once you get it typed in and kind of figure out what works there, you can actually go into the data table itself and then change, the shape of the block. It doesn't even have to be a square. You can put like X's in color or something like that.
Oh yeah. That's just, that was just, matter of fact, I got started on this late and I just went ahead and threw something together that would give you an idea. And that's the thing, if you're out there in a beginner, which I don't know if there's anybody out there doing this, it gives you a good basis to start. We went from one character on the screen, now we're down to 4, 10, 12, and a whole bunch of characters that went in that largest block. The other thing I might mention, I'm not going to go back to that screen, but I put that stack pointer up at hex 2500. Remember, we just kept pushing stuff, and the longer that display that block was, it got up to, well, really was only pushing like 84 characters in there. We had 14 times 2 is 28, 3 characters. We got up to like 84 characters on the stack, which isn't much. But if you just keep pushing stuff on a stack, if you don't watch what you're doing, you can, you know, run on your, right over your own code or right over something else.
Yeah, that's called a stack overflow.
Yep. And if you don't know it when it happens to your machine, just quit.
It's kind of the same effect of a toilet. You know, things just go horribly wrong when it overflows.
Yep. And so then what I did was, that's why I keep every week I keep putting the programs at 1,000. This week I put the data table at 1,100, and I pushed the stack up higher. And in normal programming, you don't do that. You kind of keep everything kind of together instead of spreading it out. But I think for a beginner, if you look at each place, especially if you use an emulator, you can go out and look at memory and see what it actually looks like.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the stack. Okay. As part of this will come right out of that program. Okay. We started the, I don't know how this is going to show up. Cursor. There we go. The current stack, we started out at 2,500 as far as our stack pointer was. Okay. This is that user stack. Okay. That our push U. And our first instruction we did was a push U, where X had our address of the character and A had the character. And the actual code in that table is right here, okay? The address on the screen is hex 04FB, and the character is a 60 or a blank, right? So when you look in the actual stack coming down, stack goes down. So at 24 FF would be the FB, 24 FE would be the 04, and 24 FD would be the 60. And that really looks silly when you look at it. FB04, well, our address is 04, but when you look at core and look at the dump, okay, right over here, we're going to see it. It actually sits in there as 604 FB. And the push moved the stack pointer down 3 positions. So from 25 went down to FF, FE, FD. So our current stack pointer is right here now. Now, if we was to, at this point in time, do the restore right here, we would say pull X and B. It would start here and it would pull. And the push and the pull, it's there's a set order. There's one in the instruction, if you look at it, there's one bit it's used. And each, 1 byte, I'm sorry, and each bit in there has what you're actually pushing. You're pushing the X register, the Y register, the A register. And if you push D, you get A and B. And the program counters, each one of them bits, you can look it up in these manuals on actual 68 or 9. And so you put them, I could put this instruction, I could push A and X. It could be A or X or X or A. It doesn't make any difference because the bit is set and it's going to push them. So it always pulls out in one, pushes one order and pulls out in one order. Reverse order, but pulls them out. So when you do a pull, it would pull these 3 bytes out and move the stack pointer right back up to where it was before. And that's why after we restore, we're looking for, when everything's restored, we should be back to our 2,500. Okay, now if we push that first one, we put our next character on the screen, or we push our next character on the screen, we do the same exact thing, push X and A, and there's what the address is, 051B, and a blank. We push them 3 on the stack. I got my pointer in the wrong screen, sorry about that. We put the next 3 on the stack. It looks just like it does there, and we go down 3 characters. That's where the stack pointer is. And I did this, I didn't need to do it 3 times, but I did. We pushed the 3rd one on the stack, and the pointer now is at 24 F7. So when we do our pull, it will pull them 3 bytes, and the stack pointer would be back at A. So if we're at 7, or if we go back, we're right up here at A. And we keep going up, up, and up until we get back to 2,500. When we compare to 2,500, it says, good, you're cool. We're done with that. So we put a lot of stuff on the stack. We didn't have to allocate any memory. It was hard coded. We push it on the stack and pull it back off the stack. All right, another thing here we talk about is put character on the screen. We put something in register D, we put the column, and we cleared A. So in A and B, which is really D, if you recollect, we had that 002, and we put the instruction in there, push D, push SD. Now remember now, this is S is for the system pointer. This isn't our user pointer. This is a system pointer. So we push these 2 bytes on the stack. It does the same thing as we were doing with the other one. We're 7F2 Charlie, it puts 02 and 00. When you actually look at it, that's what it looks like in memory. And we pushed it. It's on there, and the stack pointer's moved down here. When we go back to add that D, pointing wherever the stack pointer's pointing to, it's pointing right here at the 0002. It will add that to what's in register D, and this plus plus says update the stack counter by 2. So if it's A, increment by 1, increment by 2, you're back to 2C again. So we've used that space on the stack, and now we've just given it back. That's the information is there, but the pointer's there. In some instances, you could be just doing adding to, not to confuse them, if we were just adding to register A 1 byte, we would just put one of these pluses out there to add to it and update the pointer by 1. So when we're doing D, we update it by 2, get back to where it was.
I will mention that this is kind of a little bit of a faster, smaller way of doing. Like you could go the more orthogonal way where you do a pull SD to get your D back, and then you could do an add D or LEAX DCOMX or whatever type thing. But this combines the 2 into one thing, so it's kind of doing the equivalent of doing a pull SD and then adding it to D all in one instruction.
Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to get some understanding what this stack thing is. It seems to confuse some people. I know it did me at first when I first got into it, because I remember I come from a mainframe and mainframe computer networks before Ethernet and internet and stuff like that. And we didn't use stacks, and this, I got to the stack stuff with C program. I said, I don't know. And I've had trouble with it at first.
Yeah, and one other thing too, if people are coming from other 8-bit CPUs like Z/Z80s or 6502s or whatever, they only had one stack. They only had the S stack, and the 6809 is kind of unique in having a second user stack, so you can let the system, the operating system or whatever, have its own stack and do things, and you have your own separate one you can use for whatever you want, which is kind of handy.
It's real handy. All right, the next part here is what we're going to do with this RTS or pulling stuff. Okay, when you do a branch subroutine or a jump subroutine, and start out at the program counter is sitting at 1016. That's the address of the instruction that this branch subroutine is on. It will put the address on the stack of what instruction you're going to return to, not where you was, where you return to. So our branch subroutine or jump subroutine, regardless, it could be 2 or 3 bytes long. It will put that where you're going to go to. So we're going to, when we come back, we're going to go to 1018, which is the next instruction. So it just puts them on the stack like it did the other data we shoved on there. And now the current stack pointer, it's been decremented by 2. We do a return sub. Okay, what it does is it pulls the last thing on the stack off, which is 1018, and it puts it in the program counter, and then it goes to that program counter. Magically, you don't have to worry about that. It's built into the hardware. The program counter will be updated to 1018, and it will take the next instruction after your branch subroutine. So you branch there, and you do the return, it comes back. I didn't put in here, I guess I should have, if you push a bunch of things on the stack, and then when you do a branch subroutine and put things on the stack, when you go back, if you do pull the stuff you put on the stack originally, comma PC, it will pull the program counter, which is a return automatic. That's what we're talking about. You can save a few cycles and a few bytes in core. Good.
Yeah, this is analogous to like go sub and go to in basic. So like if you have line 5 go sub 100 and your next line after line 5 is line 10, when you do the go sub and then you do the return, you don't want it to come back to line 5 and rerun the same line again, which is why it's storing the next place to go to, the next line number per se. So like 5 go sub 100, line 10, when you do the return at line 100, it comes back to line 10, not to line 5. So that's basically what's happening here.
Right, that's what I was emphasizing. What it puts on that stack is the next instruction, so what that goes back to. Good way to remember, push down, pull up, push down, pull up. Because remember, the stack starts out at a high number, you push something on it, it goes down. Okay, it's different way you would normally think. It just goes down, 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 down. When you pull, it goes up, 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 up. So push down, pull up. All right, let me find out what's next in my list of.
Yeah, I don't want to add too much here. We're going to try to keep these at like an hour or less.
Yeah, I
it's
understand.
a bit too much to do all in one shot for a lot of the beginners.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the stuff is that one thing I do want to find here, if I can, is I don't know who's out there listening to this other than the people here. I don't know if there's one person, 50 people, or anybody at all listening to this and using stuff. I have a big concern. I don't mind doing it, but I've not gotten any questions or any hoopahs on Discord like it's good, it's bad, you're goofy, I already know this stuff, I'm really lost, can you help me? Not one iota of anything. So I would
to be honest, George, most of the comments we've seen so far have actually been in the live Discord chat. Or sorry, not live Discord, but the live chat, even including last week. I mean, or the last episode of it, because basically people there say that, yeah, they're watching. Like we just had David Lord say, yeah, I'm here. He's definitely paying attention to it. And there's multiple people that have said that before. So I'm not sure. Maybe they just kind of go through it at their own pace and kind of figure it out, so they don't need to ask questions. But they are watching.
Okay, well, I just would like to do. I've set up another just a Gmail account. Okay, my initials GBJ6809 at Gmail. I would like everybody that's actually really using this code that I've put out there in the zip files and stuff like that, and just send me an email and say thumbs up, thumbs down, if you could do this, don't do that, I don't understand this. Or if you're trying to it and you're lost and you need help and you're too embarrassed to say it in the live chat, if you're embarrassed and you're lost, email me. I don't mind helping anybody out, because that's what this is about, is helping the beginners out. You know, a lot of people in this place knows exactly what they're doing. Don't be scared of it. You know, if a guy's writing, you know, 128K gunfighter Astro green shoot 'em up game, don't worry about that. If you're trying to start and learn how to do some stuff, no such thing as a dumb question. Just ask and I will be more than happy to help anytime. All right, one more thing here. I need some help. I have some 5 1/4 inch floppies off my color computer that I got rid of back 30 years ago. And if somebody out there has the means to read in 5 1/4 inch floppies on an old controller and be able to put them onto a memory stick, please contact me through that, and I'll be more than happy to do whatever it takes and whatever it costs to get the information off these floppies onto a memory stick or something.
And where are you located again, in case there's anybody nearby that could make it a local drive type thing rather than you have to stick them in the mail?
It makes no difference. I'm in St. Louis, Louis area.
So for anybody in the panel or anybody in the chat or anybody watching this after the fact there, if you're nearby in the area and have the capability of copying real CoCo discs, reach out to George and we can get all that stuff backed up.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff I did years ago in the box on top of it, it's a regular Radio Shack box with floppies, and on top it says CoCo Keepers. So I want to see what's in there.
It'd be like when we went through Rick Adams stuff.
Yeah, and I have one more thing. When using MAME or MESS, either one, is how do you? I've worked with that code and worked with all the CoCo ROMs, et cetera, and I'm trying to, how can I get a hold of the control and the Alt key? I have not been able to get to it in any form. I mean, I'm doing my own key read. I'm strobing each one of the lines in that, but MAME or MES does not pass that control key. And
I would check, because one of the defaults in MAME is usually those are reserved for playing joystick games, so they're using control like fire button 1 and stuff like that. So
I went in and changed on MAME. You know, you go in and you can change what the key to give me a control. I can make it another key, and I've tried it. I've made it in just some other key, and I've strobed the lines, and nothing ever shows up when I strobe the lines for control.
It's got to be a setting though, because I do that in Nitrous 9 quite a bit, and it does register the control and Alt, but I have mine set up to not be intercepted as, you know, joysticks or whatever else. So.
Yeah, but is that within the OS 9, or what about in the Radio Shack CoCo stuff? Is it different? Anyway, that's why I'm asking for help. Somebody knows me how to change it. I've changed MES, I've changed MAME, the default keys, and I'm drawing a blank.
Okay, I'll have to try it, and I don't touch Disk Basic all that often, but I'll have to try it in Disk Basic. But I mean, the driver in Nitrous 9, it should be the same. It's reading the PIA the exact same way, so if it works for me, it should work in Basic. But yeah, I'll give that a shot later.
I would think.
Also, I'll just mention that Tom Eric Gunderson says also, I'm watching. I've only messed a little with the Z8 and the Amstrad, so it's a little confusing, but I'm trying.
Okay.
So Tom, if you have any questions, you can fire them off to George at that email on the screen right now.
Yep, I wanted to get one more thing up there, really. Won't take any more time, but I can't seem to get too many screens. I need to work on that. Here it is. And if you're going to email me and you want something down at the bottom, what's next? All right, want to work on CoCo 1, 2, or 3 stuff? Arrays, math, strings, input, output, something that somebody may be interested in. I'll be more than happy to work towards it if I can get a consensus on what people want to look at. You know, we've been doing the same thing, and I think we've progressed along. We've got a long way to go. So if you have something you'd like to really do, let me know.
Okay.
So one other
shout out to everybody.
I get one more quickie. Earlier we were talking about the MMU register, okay, in OS 9.
Yeah.
All right, here's my routine on the Radio Shack side and RS-DOS, my pop-up windows, basically doing the same thing. Okay, I come in this room for the pop-up. I turn off the interrupts. I load up the MM register, the one I'm looking for. I load it, get rid of the 2 harder bits. I save it. I put in the one for the high-res text screen, which I believe is, it's up at 6 Charlie 000. I store that now into under my working area. So now I've got a copy of the high-res text screen down in low memory. On startup time, I have a autoexec.bat file that starts, or basic file that starts, and the basic program will actually change the MMU register and load a lot of code up in a whole bunch of different pages. And up above the high-res screen, it only uses a few bytes. I mean, it uses less than 1,000 bytes. So up around hex 3000, I've got the pop-up routines to be able to pop up windows on the screen. When it gets loaded in there, I can jump straight to 3000 because I know what's there. When it comes back to me, I restore the MMM register, and away we go. I have a whole bunch of these here. I use a whole bunch of different pages for different things. I got a lot of code loaded in there. So I just wanted to share that, you know, he was using his MMU registers. I also use them. I got, I don't know, 6 or 7 different pages I use at various points within the modifications RS-DOS I've used. So good luck and good selling.
I will mention that stripping off the high bits, so you might have to change for the 2 meg upgrades.
Yeah,
burnt us a few times.
Yeah, I'm only using the emulator anyway, so 512. Anyway, we'll quit blabbing now for a while. So
okay, so everybody send in your suggestions to George at the email address you gave earlier as to where you want to go. I did see one response in the chat already. David Lord says, I would like to see code accessing the hardware. So that's one vote for hardware. But we'll see what else people do send in, what they'd like to learn next.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of this big banging on the hardware is a long way away from where we're at. But I'll see what comes in if there's any emails come in at all, and we'll go see what the future has for us.
Okay. We'll
Thank
also
you.
mention, because we've got some pretty busy scheduling with interviews and stuff, especially next
yes.
week. Where
I won't be here. We're on account of the Dragon stuff for at least the next 2 weeks. Next week for sure, and probably the next week we won't do anything. I'll check with you, Curtis, a week from now and see how things stand.
Yeah. Like next week's going to be a monster long show as it is. So.
Oh yeah.
So that's one of the reasons we're curtailing a lot of the regular segments, just because it's going to be so much for the interviews, et cetera, too. So.
And you might have a carryover to the following week and that. So I'll figure out when the next time I'll be on, but I will be back whenever it's.
Okay. Well, enjoy your
plausible.
vacation.
Yeah.
But I mean, feel free to pop by the show and participate on the panel anyway. If you have any questions for the Dragon people, some of the hardware and stuff that they're
Sure.
dealing with. So.
Yeah, because mine always is a boring segment, except for the beginners. All right. See you guys.
Okay. Thanks, George.
Thanks a lot, George. All right. We are going to go on for the Game On News. Is that what we want to do next?
Sounds good.
All right. Let me get the intro going for that. All right, take it away, Curtis. Game On News.
Okie dokie.
Wake me up when it's over, please.
Actually, the news is fairly short this week. This shouldn't take too long, except possibly some of the Dragon games, which hopefully Kieran and some of the others actually rejoin us there, because some of these I've never seen before. So if I can get some details, it'd be great. So you guys seen that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so first up, last week we covered TKOM's Retro Gaming Nook. Started doing videos of CoCo games, and usually doing some of the individual games. And now they're starting to do some comparison games where they actually take multiple clones of an arcade game and then compare them all in one big video. So in this case, they decided to pick Centipede, and they picked, I think, 6 or something different clones of it. So I'll just play a little bit of the intro here, and I'll kind of go through some of the stuff they did. So here they say they start with Atomic's Caterpillar Attack, which is an early 1982 one.
What we can do is we can check out a couple of different Centipede clones, I guess, huh?
And we'll play the whole thing, but they go through a whole bunch of them. So they've got Caterpillar Attack, they've got Colorpede, they've got Megapede, they've got Caterpillar by Aardvark.
Here's Colorpede.
Slay the Nereus. I'm not sure how to pronounce the one from Radio Shack that Spectral did, but basically they go through and compare them all, and they kind of pick which ones they like the best. I think if I remember correctly, they ended up picking Slay the Nereus as their favorite because it had some extra little bits in there. My personal favorite is Colorpede, which is on the screen right now, just because it's the closest to the arcade. But there's numerous ones, and actually there's one on the Dragon I'd not seen before that actually will be showing up when we get to the Dragon game stuff on Cutthroat Dragon site. But I really like the comparison format. We've shown some comparison videos between different platforms, say a CoCo version of Frogger versus the Froggers that appeared in other platforms. And Steve and I have done some of these comparison videos a few years back of taking different clones or official ports of various arcade games on the CoCo and doing a head-to-head comparison between them all. So I'm kind of happy that somebody else is kind of picking up that mantle, because Steve and I haven't done that for years now. And there's tons of arcade games that we have multiple versions of on the CoCo, and more all the time. So it's a good video, and I'm trying to get them on for being a guest at some point here, just to kind of talk about their experience with the CoCo, the fact that it's a husband and wife team that are playing the games, because that's not something we see all that often in the CoCo community. It's usually just us guys. So interesting video. It's a bit of a long one because they're going through quite a few different versions. They kind of give their opinions of each as they go through them all too. So definitely worth a watch.
Can't wait for their Joust one.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they pick correctly. Pegasus, right?
That's right.
Next up, Jim Gary had a couple this week. So the first one here is the video walkthrough of Sunrise of, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this, Bethsalamine. The spelling's on the bottom there. So basically, this is a text adventure that was originally on the Sinclair Spectrum, and he's ported to the MC10, of course. It even features a little bit of low-res graphics you'll see here. So they get a picture of your character here, for example. So it's kind of a low-res graphics / text adventure game kind of combined. I'll just fast forward so you can see a little bit more of it.
I believe that's Planet Beth Seliman from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Is that how it's pronounced? I haven't listened to Hitchhikers in so long, I couldn't remember.
And if I remember right, that's the one that's so worried about the cumulative effect of tourist erosion that if you weigh more when you try to leave the planet than when you arrived, they lop off body parts. So
yeah, if you don't excrete as much as you intake, and like I remember that from the books, yeah, and the radio play. Anyways, it's kind of cute having just that little bit of graphics on the top does heighten the game to me somewhat, because it's not just the straight old text adventure. You've got a little bit of visual cues here too, so kind of interesting one. This next one's a bit of an interesting one too. It's a game, and this is originally done in French, I think it was, because it was originally for the Alice. So I'm gonna butcher because I don't speak French about it. Anybody here can, please correct me if I'm wrong. Sorcelère, which I think it means sorcery. So it's originally written by a guy named Rafi. I don't have no idea how to pronounce his last name either. Derry Guyan, sure, from a French magazine called Ordinateur Individuel, and their December 1985 issue. I'm butchering names like crazy today. So this was originally an Alice, which of course was the French clone of the MC10. So he ported it back to the MC10, did the translations, and the interesting backstory on this game is that he is speculating, and he wrote a blog post about it, which I'll show in a second here, but he's speculating that this might have been a partial inspiration for the Harry Potter books, because there's some stuff that seems to be in common with what J.K. Rowling wrote about in the Harry Potter series. And I'd never seen this game before, so I can't speak to that, and I haven't played it to really know for sure, but maybe a standard text adventure game. But here's his blog posting on it. And where he kind of speculates, he kind of goes a little bit of the history of the game itself here and what the game itself is about. And then he says one thing, and I'll just read this one paragraph for those that are listening to the audio version. One thing that has always struck me about this program is the parallels it has with the Harry Potter stories. The idea of sorcerers appearing from a parallel universe hidden existence. The attempt by them to take over the non-magical world, a mysterious castle. It makes me wonder if there was some possible path of inspiration that helped contribute to J.K. Rowling's development of the wizarding world of Harry Potter. And it is known that J.K. Rowling herself had studied Romance languages. And it also mentions on the internet some interviews she'd done and stuff in the past. Between 1983 and 1986, she attended or studied French with subsidiary in classics at the University of Exeter in Britain. So she actually studied French. So maybe she had seen this French game, and then maybe that kind of put something in the back of her head. This is speculation for the Harry Potter series. I don't know if that's true or not. It'd be fascinating if one of us had enough pull to actually ask her and find out. But it's an interesting speculation anyway. And he goes through some example stuff here of some of the things that are kind of like in parallel between the two. So if anybody else has an opportunity to try to find that out from, if any of your personal friends with J.K. Rowling, please ask on our behalf. Now, Cuthbert Dragon's been darn busy this week. I don't even know where to begin. I mean, there's screenfuls of stuff that's been added in the last week here, including Ninja Warrior, which we showed off last week. But basically, started doing, there's a few here like Megabug, which, I mean, we don't need to show it, but it's basically using the alternate color set because, of course, they didn't have artifact colors. Glove is the gauntlet style clone that James McKay did back in 2006 with the CoCo and the Dragon, which I think we've shown before, so I won't show it. This one called Slide here is a basic game, and it's kind of, if you remember those little sliding plastic puzzles you used to get in cereals and stuff, where you'd have like 15 numbers and you had the empty space, and they would be all jiggled up in random order, and you have to switch them all around one at a time to try to get them in numeric order. This is on a bigger scale, with a much bigger playing board, so it's actually harder. You can see that here. And it's written in BASIC. So it's a nice little example of a basic casual game. Well, this is a casual game. It'll take you hours to play, I'm sure, but so it's one of the better basic games to give you something a bit more advanced than the plastic version. So if you got really good at that sliding numbers game, here's your chance to play the top-notch hard version of it. So that was one. Datafall, I won't bother showing it because it's basically just another Ketchum popcorn style game, but it's a Dragon unique version of it. Jaws. Now this is one I think we'd shown once before from High Retro Game Lord a year or two ago, but he didn't really know what he was doing on it. This Cuthbert Dragon actually does seem to know what he's doing on it, so I thought I'd play a bit of that because it's kind of an interesting game concept. So you've got a couple different parts to the game, basically two different screens. So the first one here, you're kind of like wandering the green ocean, so obviously they have an algae problem. But you're basically shooting stuff. And you're a rescue helicopter, basically. You're trying to rescue people from sharks. And plus you get other boats shooting at you and stuff here too. And then here you're trying to rescue these people that are floating in the water and those sharks are swimming across. So you pick them up with the ladder in your helicopter. And occasionally the sharks will suddenly zoom up and eat a person. So you're fighting with the sharks to, rescue the people before they get eaten. Like there's one of them going down now. So kind of an interesting concept. I haven't really seen a game like that. I presume this is a Dragon original. I don't know if this has been ported to anything else or came from like a Spectrum or something. I haven't heard of it before, but if anyone in the chat can correct me on that, please feel free to do so. So I thought that was an interesting one. Bells we've shown before. Dungeons, that's Kieran's. So he's actually played Kieran's game, and that's a port from the Spectrum, I believe, and it's Gauntlet-ish, but not quite. The unique thing about Dungeons is that each player gets a quarter of the screen, and you don't have to be in the same physical part of the maze in the dungeon. Like in Gauntlet, basically, if players run in opposite directions, as soon as they hit the edge of the screen, you stop moving, because it keeps and forces everybody on the same screen, even if the actual player is like 5 screens wide by 10 screens high or something. In Dungeons, you get to go wander off individually, so you can assign, like, you will get the gold key in this room over here, and you go in a different direction and get something else. So it's a bit more collaborative, but also lets each player play like to their own and not have to worry about where exactly everybody else is. So and a multiplayer version of the game, and this does support up to 4 simultaneous human players. It can be quite fun and quite a bit different play-wise than Gauntlet because of that. Next one up here is this Magic Midnight, which the actual game is called, what's it called, Lachlan? And he's got a new monitor here, I've noticed here, this red monitor. Kind of reminds me of the guy with the lava lamp. So this is kind of a text, a low-res graphic adventure game where you're wandering through maps and you're doing various things, but it's got some interesting parts to it later on. Excuse me. It has a unique battle system, I guess would be the main thing here. So we'll fast forward a little bit here to it kind of does this active bar graph thingy. Well, it's actually firing up a spell, so that's a different screen. Here you go at the markets, you can buy some certain things. Hopefully you doesn't pull. And here you're actually viewing your health, etc., and actually does little bar graphs there too, instead of just turning a number like your health is 5 out of 10 or something. So here you've actually got status bars of your health with the little indicators of where you are, and then it does little descriptions of each attack as what exactly has happened and your hit points drop. But it's all graphically done with bar graphs rather than just printing numbers. So I thought that was an interesting innovation of this type of thing, especially for a game back from this time period. So as far as a basic text adventure game with a little bit of graphical elements, I thought that was a pretty innovative way of doing things. We've seen a lot of pretty innovative adventure style games on the Dragon, actually, that went beyond a lot of the stuff we saw on the CoCo. Next one up, this one I have not seen before. It's called Morbid Mansion. It's another platformer, which is definitely a mainstay of Dragon games. And once again, in the UK tradition, they name every level. This is the evil entrance. It looks like there's a little bit of a timer in the lower right corner too, which you actually did graphically rather than just a countdown timer. So that was kind of cool. It reminds me a little bit of Module Man, for those who are familiar with the Spectral Associates game, because you've got the little doorways, you've got to get the keys to unlock the doors to get into other screens, etc. So, but I thought that was a kind of interesting one. Invader's Revenge we've seen before. Castle Attack, I think we've seen that one before. 609 Express, we have shown that one before. That's where the train's rolling across and you get the little switches on the bottom you can see scrolling by, and you have to steer so you don't run and crash into stuff. And then you get, you know, random planes that just drop bombs on you, and you have to try to avoid those as well. This is Ultrapede. Here is the one I was mentioning earlier, which is another Centipede clone. Let me show you the little intro screen there. Oops. So the loader screen actually I thought was kind of cute. And Rainbow Software did a fair number of Dragon games. They also did stuff like Rommel's Revenge, which is I think the best Battle Zone clone we have in the CoCo and Dragon computers as well. A little bit of a different look than some of the other ones we've had. Along, you know, the full range of vertical movement like the arcade did versus say something like CoCoTALK, which only lets you move up and down one cell. Grand Prix we've shown before, Pettigrew's Diary we've shown before, White Crystal, I think that was a newer one I'd not seen before. Oh no, we have seen the one before, sorry. No, not that. Actually, we just saw the one recently. Temple of Zorm, I think. It's hard to keep track of all the ones that Cuthbert's been doing lately. So this is basically it's a text adventure game, but it has this nice graphical intro screen. But it has this little intro thing where you actually have to fly with the joystick or keyboard to land on that launching pad. So it looks like it's going to be a low-res arcade game, but once you complete that, then it turns into a text adventure game, which you do when you hit the surface. So kind of a weird hybrid of two genres together into one game. I thought that was kind of strange. I hadn't really seen that done before either. Like I said, after that's just a text adventure game, so it's kind of a weird combo. Sultan's Maze, this was actually an interesting one too. It kind of reminds me a bit of what's that 3D monster maze or whatever it's called on the Spectrum? Oh, the ZX81, ZX81. We have the Tyrannosaur coming after you in the maze, and you have to try to escape. Because at first I was looking at it, looked like Labyrinth or Escape or some of these ones where you just have to try to find the exit to the maze, but it actually does have monsters after you. And then it has some weird stuff that I was hoping one of the people in the chat, maybe 60, if he's seen it before, if he can mention exactly what this effect is, because it's kind of a strange looking thing. I'm trying to remember whereabouts in the game it is here. Yeah, here. All of a sudden this weird thing happens. I don't know what the heck's happening here. So 60, if you happen to know, let me know what that means. I don't know if that's like a secret passage you're opening or exactly what is that. And then of course you got the actual monster chasing you down.
T-Rex is eating you.
In this case, he died. So that's Sultan's Maze. It's sort of and I think it's written in BASIC. I think they're using like two screens, double buffering, so it's drawing everything, because there's a bit of a delay before it displays the next frame when you move. So I'm imagining it's drawing on the second screen, and then it just switches the display over there, and it just keeps flopping back and forth to make it look smoother. Oh, 60 says, no idea on this one. Maybe the inlay would tell something. I haven't seen the inlay yet, so. Guardian Angel, this looks like a scramble type clone, except there's not things on the bottom shooting at you that I could see anyway. There seems to be just, you know, stuff floating around, etc. that you shoot, and there's you know, various attack things coming after you. You also have sight, so it looks like you have to fire to a certain distance. So you have to fire to where the sight is. It doesn't just go across the screen and wipe everything out on the way. So it takes a bit more finesse than Scramble does. And at first you get just these simple missiles that just fall down towards the ground, you know, type thing. So it's basically just bonus points. It's not really, you know, all that much of a challenge at this point. But later on, it starts sending out these, you know, yellow, you know, TIE fighters type saucery things at you, like that one. So that you have to dodge or shoot. And then it's got these landing portals, like he just landed on there, and it'll say the word landing on it. So you go in that, and then you drop into the second screen. which is kind of like a Lunar Rescue, or I think that's what it's called in the arcade. So it's kind of combining two arcade games, a scramble-ish game, and then it combines with the Lunar Rescue type game into one. So I thought that was kind of cool. You get two games for one, basically, at this point. And of course, you can die. So I thought that was a rather interesting one. Super Skill Hangman and the Wizard's Lair, he just added since the show started. So that's old news to me. I mean, Hangman, we all know what that looks like. Wizard's Lair, I'm going to take a look at it. I don't remember seeing that one before, and I have no idea what this is going to be. The Blabby one from 85, it looks like. And 60, if you know this one, let me know. It's a nice music. Okay, we've kind of seen this style before. This one might be a sequel to one of the earlier ones, but I remember some of these graphics actually, but it looks like there's an extra inventory status thing on the right that the other games don't share. 60, correct me if I'm wrong on all that. Okay, that looks like an interesting one. Anyway, Cuthbert, like I said, he's been really, really busy this week, so he's been just cranking out the videos, so go check him out. Next up, Tom Eric Gunderson is actually in the chat, so he can maybe chat us up a little bit on that too. So he mentioned that way back in 1987, when he was in school, we had a computer class with CP/M and MS-DOS PCs. We were mostly left to our own devices, programming in Turbo Pascal and GWiz Basic, which was, of course, on the original PC. There's not much help to get. So he wrote this game, and this is basically the snakes game, you know, where you're trying to not eat your own tail and you get longer as you go and pick up items, etc. It's written in a text mode, basically, so it's using like number signs for your snake, etc. So he wrote this in GWiz Basic, and he later ported it to the Amstrad CPC 464 he had at home, and his Dragon 32 had already been put away in favor of the CPC by then. So recently he decided, what the heck, he'd dig it back out and he'd actually get it running on the Dragon, which is what he's done here. And of course, it starts slow and it can run much faster as you get up in levels, etc. here. So, unlike, you know, the other standard games that your tail gets longer every time you catch one of those. Can't run in the walls, can't run in your own tail. Anyway, it's a pretty cool. I haven't really seen a text version of it before. So it's a rather interesting way of doing it, but it's pretty cool. I'd have to ask him if the text was chosen because that's what he did on the original CPC and IBM PC GWiz Basic versions, or is that just something he decided to do? Oh, he says, show the video in the comments, it's faster. Oh, okay. Can you guys see that, or is it cutting off?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, increase the quality a little bit here. I have no idea why Facebook defaults to crap quality every time. Probably to match the platform. And now it won't play. Awesome. Well, take our word for it. It's faster. Anyway, Tom, if you have it available for download in case somebody wants to try to take a look at the basic code, like, you know, we're doing a beginner's assembly course. This would be a good game for a beginner's basic course for writing games too. So you post the link. And he said, yes, that's all you could do in GWiz Basic time. So that's why he picked the text characters. Now this one of our guests on the Dragon Show next week, actually, Chris Poacher, and you actually, if you watch the Dragon preview teaser video we did, he was the very first speaker. So he's the guy who's collecting all the history of Microdeal. Now, Microdeal sold for 8 and 16-bit machines through its life, so it was selling for Amigas and Atari STs and some other stuff too. But in this particular picture he put on the private group that he's got for Microdeal, and we were talking about this earlier, Cuthbert was the official mascot of the Dragon type thing, and, you know, a lot of games had Cuthbert in the title, like Cuthbert in the Jungle, which is a renamed Trapfall from Tom Mix, and Cuthbert Goes Walkabout, which is an Amadar clone, etc. But what he pointed out here, he didn't just make appearances for his own games, he also appeared on these other titles too. So these are like King Tut, which is originally a Tom Mix game, Mud Pies, which is a Mictron one we just did recently, Ziggy, which is a Spectral Associates graphical adventure game. Athletics, which is Ken Kalish's Olympic Decathlon. Beam Rider, which is Electric Yo-Yo from Spectral. Caverns of Doom, which is a UK original. 8-Ball was from Antico, if I remember correctly. But you'll notice that Cuthbert actually is making his appearance on every single one of these, even though he's not part of the title. He never appears in the game. So, you know, just as the mascot is, he kind of reminds me of Alfred E. Newman from Mad Magazine in a lot of these here. But yeah, he definitely was a mascot that was quite popular at the time. And as Stevie has pointed out, they just did much better with their art because there was no Ziploc baggy cheap crap here with just, you know, colored paper with black text on it. They did full color cassette inlays and stuff here too. I have to say the presentation of cassette games, particularly on the Dragon, was much better than almost everything we had up here in North America. And Nick Marentes, if you're still there and still awake, I think Australia was more like the North American market. They didn't get too fancy, except maybe a bit later on.
I think he's snoring.
Yeah.
Cranky.
Next up, Lyndon of Old School Games and Stories channel. Now, we've shown one of his videos where he mentioned that he had a CoCo back as a youth, and he still has his very first CoCo 2 he got in Christmas of 1984. So we haven't had his videos on for a while because he hasn't done anything CoCo related. So I've actually got two here in this case. So one is his own channel, which is this one here. And he decided to do a Let's Play Downland. So we'll just fast forward
Some cool music.
here.
So if any of the CoCo nuts come across this, don't expect me to be spitting out no facts.
Kind of sounds like our show, doesn't it?
We'll stick to that. That's what I know.
He did give us a plug in CoCoTALK.
Now, I do not know of a way to record this. I have a capture card that works on.
So he gets in and playing Downland. He does one straight playthrough, and he's capturing in his iPad because his capture software doesn't do as good of a quality job on the video. And the CoCo 3 and CoCo's we know has a bit out of sync RF/composite. It's not quite, you know, proper, so a lot of capture cards have problems with it. But he actually gets pretty far into the game, and he's playing with the Black Beauties, like he's playing with the floating joystick. So that's on Downland. That's a challenge because you can run off the edge of a rope and plummet to your death quite easily if it doesn't auto center. Anyway, it's a pretty good. He doesn't get through every screen, but he gets through the majority of them. I think he gets through like 7 or 8 of them, so you can check that out. And then he'd mentioned during this that he'd just been on another podcast, one I've not seen before, on the channel called The Poor Man's Retro Game Room. And it's a series they call the Retro Gaming Roundtable. Now, I've seen the Retro Roundtable, and at first glance, I thought from the title, this was like a related one, just gaming with the same people. It's not. It's a totally different show, totally different hosts. But basically, in this case, they have episode 5. They go through the first and fondest game consoles or home computer consoles, whatever you started your gaming with. And they go through the 4 people, the host and 3 guests, like what was the very first one you ever played, and what was the one that out of everything up till now, what is the one that holds the most nostalgia for you? And Lyndon picked the CoCo as his first one and kind of went through, you know, I think his first game was Megabug, for example. So it's pretty interesting. And you get the other people who start with a 2600 or start with a Nintendo or whatever else. So
welcome to episode number 5 of the Retro Gaming Roundtable.
So for those of you into retro gaming in general and aren't platform specific, this is actually looks like a pretty interesting podcast.
Cool
so I'd recommend it for those of you that are, you know, the gaming persuasion type.
From the Dad Racer YouTube channel, and we got Lyndon from the Old School Games and Stories channel. He's all.
Now, one thing I was thinking here, because they actually are kind of promoting here in the upper left corner here, the various podcasts these people are normally have on their own, is that maybe Nick Marotta or some of, or maybe Aaron and Boat or something, or, you know, some of us in the CoCo gaming community might want to get in contact with them and maybe hop on to, you know, show off some CoCo 3 stuff or something like that too. So I think that would be pretty interesting. I haven't reached out to them myself because I'm kind of busy with a bazillion other things going on, but any of you gamers out there, this might be an opportunity, you know, to plug our show somewhere else, because they obviously are plugging the shows of the guests as it is. So I don't know if this is like a permanent panel. They're only 5 episodes in, so maybe they're still figuring it out for themselves, but it might be worthwhile, you know, kind of talking to them, maybe through Lyndon or through the host directly, maybe leave them a message on YouTube and see if we can, you know, get some more CoCo gaming action on that channel. And that is it for the gaming news this week.
Woohoo! Is anybody still awake out there? Nope.
Oh, yeah.
I guess not.
Well, if you thought you were awake now, you wait till the real news starts here, and then we'll get you right to sleep.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we're having a power outage right now.
From CoCoTALK to CoCo Snore.
All right, let me run the news.
Not a ton this week, so that'll help.
All right, here we go. Here comes the news intro. You know what? Before we do that, let's take a potty break. Well, Ron's not here, so I guess we'll take a quick break then. All right, let me run a commercial real quick, and then we will be right back after these messages.
CoCoTALK will return after these messages.
CoCo2, c'est le coq champignon, des micros et dans le pion. Pour le jeu, il a pas d'attente, les études, c'est pas bizarre. L'expansion, il envoie ça, les commandes, tu vas voir ça. Notre CoCo est programmable, pour tes cours, c'est bien serviable. CoCo2 de Radio Shack, ton affaire est dans le sac.
Un ordinateur couleur qui a de la personnalité. Le CoCo2 de Radio Shack. En solde pour Noël à partir de 149,95.
CoCo2 de Radio Shack, ton affaire est dans le sac, c'est toi et CoCo2.
And now, Coco Thoughts by Samuel Gimes. If you're using your color computer in Quebec and it stops working, is it now a CoCo won't do?
Hi, Ron Delvo, Timberman, Coco Fest, CoCoTALK.
In a world where RGB produces black and white video, one cable can make a difference. Switcheroo. CoCo3ScartCable.com.
Hey, have you got your CoCo 3 yet? Hi, this is Rick Adams, author of Temple of Ram and Shanghai, and you've tuned into CoCoTALK, the nation's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy color computer.
What's going on, everybody? Original Gamer Stevie Stroh here, and if you're a fan of vintage computing and retro gaming, then you're going to love our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. There you will find custom designs by Instagram artist Joel M. Adams. You can get I'm a Coconut, CoCoTALK, and other cool video game images on a t-shirt, coffee mug, or mouse pad. So if you love retro, then head on over to the retro swag shop at 8bit256.com today. Tell them the Original Gamer Stevie Stroh sent you.
Radio Shack store-wide manager's red tag sale is on now. We've slashed prices 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. Save on famous Radio Shack hi-fi, car stereo, radios, toys, TV games, calculators, walkie-talkies, and CB radios. Look for the big red tag. Save like never before on these and literally hundreds of red tag specials. Hurry into Radio Shack today.
Hi, this is Randy Kindig of the Floppy Days podcast. I just love me some CoCo, and nobody covers it better than Steve Strobridge. You're listening to CoCoTALK.
From around the world, what you need to know. Get caught up on News with L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash.
All right, now we're ready for that favorite time of the show, news with L. Curtis Sleepy.
Let's say the closing credits.
Take it away, Curtis.
Okay, first up, James Jones found this page here, which is kind of a timeline and history and family tree of operating systems since the 50s. So George probably would know a lot of these ones a lot better than I would, going back further, because they go through some of the IBM stuff, the old Unix stuff from the early 70s, etc. The cool thing about it is that OS9 from Microware and Nitrous 9 are both mentioned on it. Now, I did send a bit of a correction to the person here because he's got Nitrous 9 as a completely separate independent operating system, which, you know, it's definitely based on OS9 here. But like here you can see like all the various Unixes, and there's HP Unix, and you're getting more recent. You can see the time on the top. Now, I had to shrink this down to fit it on screen because this is a large chart. So it's probably not the most readable thing unless you're running in 1080p or higher or something here. But you can see that the timeline goes from 1951 to the present. And he's got color coding, which he says he's going to explain properly when he does some updates in the near future here. So I'm not sure what the difference between orange and purple and black and all these other colors he uses are here. You can see more here. There's the mock kernel, stuff from the Unix side of things. And then you got stuff from Multics here back from the 50s and, all the various things that came kind of linked from that. And blue is like the CPM branch and all the stuff that came out from CPM. Here's the MS-DOS, PC-DOS, Windows stuff here for the, the Windows that is not the NT kernel. I haven't even heard of DIP-DOS in the Atari. I don't know what that is. And Robotron, which I'm not sure. Did they make an operating system based on the arcade game? I'm not sure what that means. Then got some stuff here like Uniflex, which is, I think, a derivative Flex, and Smokedale Chieftains, which is not another one that actually ran OS9 back in the day. Like I said, I don't know what the color coding groupings exactly mean. Here's Terrace-DOS for Tandy for the, the Model 1, Model 2, Model 3, etc. Turbo-DOS. It's a really interesting thing. You can see how these things all, branched off at each other, or at least are grouped on, based on the same principles, but maybe started independently. But you can see it's a huge friggin' list.
I didn't know there was that many operating systems out there. Good grief.
I didn't either. Half these I have not even heard of. And getting way back to like Sabre IBM in the late 50s and it's a pretty fascinating tree, though. I mean, I'm a genealogy guy anyway. I have a whole genealogy website in addition to my CoCo site stuff. So this is kind of like right up my alley. I'm not sure why this Afros has suddenly got a different color than that one thing. I probably have to go follow the connection somewhere else here. But yeah, they got MicroWare OS 9 in here, and I'm trying to remember where the hell on the screen it is. Maybe I should just do a find. Oops. Yeah, so here's OS 9 RTOS, OS 9000, David, which was their multimedia thing they used for the CD stuff, OS 968K from MicroWare 2. Now, this is a little bit inaccurate because RTOS was actually the 6800 operating system that MicroWare did back in 78, 79 when Ken Kaplan and them were all in college. And then OS 9 came out a couple of years later based on the 609 chip, specifically working in conjunction with Motorola when they also created Basic 9. So actually, that should be a little bit of a branch. Because OS 9 actually branched, basically was based on RTOS, but it wasn't. RTOS was not multi-user multitasking. I think it was only one of the two, if I remember correctly. And then here they have Nitrous 9 group next to the Newton-OS for some reason. I have no idea why it's a separate branch. It's not based on anything, but that should be linked somewhat with OS 9. So I did send them a correction on that. But just to have it mentioned, that was kind of cool. Because I've never been in contact with this person before. The fact they actually know about all this stuff is interesting in and of itself. Anyway, really cool. So many big thanks to James Jones for finding that. And he posted on Facebook in the OS 9 Nitrous 9 Facebook group, because I probably never would have heard of this otherwise. So thank you, James. Next up here, and once again, setting Facebook notifications off does not work for some stupid reason. Just like much of Facebook. Okay, so Joel Evie published this, and this is, I'm not going to try to get into the technical details because, frankly, I don't understand most of it, but this is about mapping RGB versus composite color spaces. So RGB is based pretty simply on red, green, and blue guns that are, the little pixels that light up on your CRT monitor type thing, or your LCD for this matter these days. And then CMP on the CoCo 3 is basically this color wheel here. So you've got a rotating, and it's a phase shift, basically based on phasing. And it basically cycles through these colors on the outside wheel, and that's your colors 0 through 15, 0 being black, of course. And basically, for every 16 you add, it adds an intensity, which to me, it's adding more white to it. It becomes more white. So if you start with color 0, it's black, dark gray, light gray, white. And here you start with dark blue, light blue, all the way up to the lightest blue. And then your various other ones here go through that too. So that's kind of what's set up. But him and Robert Galt and John Kowalski's Sockmaster has been really contributing to the comments in here, because there's like almost 60 comments already on this thread, going through the math to figure out exactly how to map this into modern systems. And if you want to create like for say Bill Noble's game, if you wanted to create some graphics for the CoCo based on modern systems, you can figure out how to translate the RGB values back to composite using this thing. And Stockmaster gets into these technical things, like if you go in the 640 mode, you can actually tell it to be a grayscale display, but because every single pixel is made up of 3 little mini pixels, red, green, and blue, in a triangular shape, he actually explains the math to be able to do artifact coloring on an RGB display using the 640 mode in grayscale to do colors. And then he actually did some samples that he put on later on here. So I'm fun with the screenshots here, but it's pretty incredible stuff. Now, here's one. He did 640 by 400 in 4 shades of gray. And that's what it turns out to be. That's grayscale.
That's pretty good.
I was going to say, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Oh, it's John. I mean, what do you expect? I mean, if any miracle stuff's going to happen, it's going to be from him. But and then he goes through like different algorithms. Well, I changed this little thing here, and he's calculating like, if you're on every 4 pixels, if you're on the far left one, like the first gray, it'll light up 13% of the green pixel under in the CRT, and 60% of the red and 12% of the blue. So you can calculate all the different offsets here to figure out exactly where your color is going to show up. And like I said, it's way the hell over my head. But the results speak for themselves. That's pretty darn amazing for a grayscale.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
What movie is that from?
I don't recognize off the top of my head.
Okay.
One of you guys, I'm just imagining a sci-fi movie of some sort, but
that's damn good.
Yeah. So Nick Morantes, obviously you have some work cut out for you, because now you can make all these composite games and stuff look awesome. So get on that. You're gonna have to backport out your games to use this new technique. But anyway, if you're really into that color stuff, and speaking of color here, this is from a Daniel O'Connor. So she's got her 2 CoCo 3 set up here, and the one on the far right is on an RGB / VGA display, and the one on the left is PAL. And PAL composite. Now what?
No, the one on the right, it looks like it's on a CM8.
Yeah, that's VGA / RGB is what she labeled it as. So that's
oh,
what
RGB. Yeah, sorry, I thought you said
I said both because that's what she labels it as. It'll look the same in both, basically. The left is a PAL composite out. And look how sharp. I mean, the colors are a little bit different. In fact, they look a little bit better. Actually, like the yellow in particular looks more contrasty myself, and the cyan and stuff. But I mean, that just shows you how good the color accuracy on PAL, which actually is tapping RGB signals directly to create the PAL signal, looks compared to composite that we got. The disadvantage, of course, is that artifact colors don't exist. Or, there's a little bit of a vertical one, but it doesn't look quite as good or as striking as it does on the Apple II or the CoCo on NTSC. But it definitely showed that the text quality and the color quality, if you're using a color mode that is a proper color mode, did look far better on PAL than it ever did on NTSC. As most Australians and UK people already know.
Yep, we know.
Next up, Sheldon McDonald, who we had as a guest here recently, is putting the finishing touches together for a new drawing program for P-Mode 1. Now he's demonstrated his whole, disk utility stuff that actually can write and, do assembly and basic programs directly to disk images. And he's done his whole graphics library that he's been doing, you can call from assembly, that we demonstrated, was it 2 weeks ago now? I can't remember now. But basically he's been adding more stuff to it. So he's got a P-Mode 0 or P-Mode 1 editor here. We can actually convert, stuff back and forth. And he just posted this last night, going through some details of some stuff he's adding. And this is still work in progress very much so. But he also posted a YouTube video this morning, which I haven't actually had a chance to fully watch yet, kind of demonstrating this. Now, it's a fairly long one, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's 13.5 minutes, but I'll just maybe play some snippets and see if it's interesting.
I'm going to do a quick demonstration today using my new drawing program for P-Mode 1 for the color computer. I'm going to just kind of go over how to use this tool and how it can benefit assembly language programming. Okay, so you got all your functions here on the right side of it. I'm going to take this debug thing out before it gets released. You'll notice that if I'm on a draw mode, so you see these 9 boxes on the top corner here. It just shows you where your mouse is currently going to be editing. So for example, if I was to click just below this, it should become a yellow dot. If you are using box, and this big box here is obviously the color that you've selected. So we're going to use box mode, and up here it says mode box. So if I wanted to draw a box from, say, there to there, that's how that would be done.
I'll just pause it for a second. Like, I know, Nick, you've been working with some of Sheldon's tools, or at least are fairly enamored with them. Have you had any experience with this stuff yet, or is this
No,
totally
no,
internal
I
to him?
haven't. Yeah, that's internal to him. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, he's got all these different things. So he starts demonstrating the various clips and stuff there. Different functions like boxes and lines and how to switch colors, etc. And they also does some importing of graphics from other places, and then talks about the exporting and stuff too. There's one doing one in artifact colors, for example. So it looks like a pretty useful tool if you're going to be drawing shapes and stuff. And currently this is for the P Mode 1, and it works along with his P Mode 1 library stuff and assembly that he's done before too. So it's definitely it's a really nice library if you're going to be doing graphics programming on the CoCo and assembly language, rather than having to figure out how to use a Bresenham algorithm to draw a line. Well, that stuff's built into the library, so you just call it with here's the start point, here's the end point, go draw a line for me, kind of like you would in BASIC. So it's nice having an assembly language library, especially for beginners who just want to prototype a game or prototype a screen or something like that, not have to figure out all the ins and outs of every little drawing a pixel at a time yourself. Anyway, like I said, I won't play the whole thing. It's definitely worth a watch, though, if you're into that whole development system that Sheldon's been coming up with. Next up, Retro Rick, and we've shown a couple betas of this before. So this is his maze generating program, which he's now got ported to CoCo 1 and 2s with only 16K of RAM, though it runs in low res. He's also got a Dragon 3264 version of it now. He's also got a CoCo 3 version, and this is his actual full official release of version 4. So it's a little bit faster. He's going to demonstrate the CoCo 3 version in this particular video. Now, once again, I won't play the whole thing here. So you have this thing where you can actually select the width and the height of the maze, and you can get pretty high with that, and then it has a little status. It's a little bit faster than even the previous alpha was. And then he has his little hourglass, and I'll just play a little bit of his auto solving part of it here, so it's generating. And this is all in BASIC. So for those you want to make a maze platformer type thing, or maybe a dungeon game or something like that, I mean, this routine he's got, you can actually set it up to save the maps as you create them. So you can actually make levels without actually having to design them yourself. You can just have it do it, and it's a solvable maze every time. So, and he goes through a couple of the different modes that he's got running on it here. Let's find. So if you got a higher res maze, you can't fit the fancy shaded graphics. It'll just do the line style thing like the screensaver in Nitrous 9 does. Or one of the screensavers, that one that Brian Schubring runs all the time. And then, like I said, he's got CoCo 1 and 2 versions that do it lower res, and he's also got the Dragon version, which uses a bit more RAM, so it's a bit more advanced than the 16K CoCo version. But all those versions should be available for download now. Next up is a Jim Gary one. Now, I didn't include this in the regular Jim Gary stuff because it's not a game, so it's not. I didn't put it in the Game On news. It might be of interest to Ron DeVoe if he's still around or not asleep or something. But basically, it's Phases de la Lune, which is French for Phases of the Moon. Originally programmed by Philip. I don't know if I try to pronounce his last name. But basically, you get to pick, and this uses a bit more uniquely. This uses the 64x48 semi-graphics 6 graphics mode. The normal low-res graphics mode is 64x32 with 8 colors. This uses a couple pokes to get it to run the 64x48x4 color mode. So it's slightly higher vertical res. You get about 50% more pixels up and down. It would normally, so you get kind of a smoother, look at the moon here. And then you kind of created a fake little text font using that graphics here, but you're limited to 4 colors at this point. So let's go to the next one here. That's pretty close to a full moon.
Very gibbous.
So what'd you say? What semi-graphics mode is this?
6.
6.
Yeah.
So
The normal set reset is semi-graphics 4, which is 64 by
Yeah.
32 effective. This is 64 by 48 effective, but you only get 4 colors.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. Why would you only get 4 colors?
Well, it uses the extra bits to do the extra dots because it does the same dot grid that the Model 1 and 3 do, 2 by 3 pixel
Oh,
per
okay.
character versus the 2 by 2 that we're used to. And that has been supported in the VDG since day one. And just most people didn't bother using it. And Jim's used it on a few of his games before too. So if you just need a little bit of extra res and you don't mind being limited to 4 colors, it's kind of a cool way to get a little bit extra. With the same amount of space, it only takes 512 bytes per screen.
And in 4x3 displays, it gets square pixels.
Oh, right. Yeah, that is one other thing. And we know that Nick loves his square pixels.
Well, I
when
use
you
semi-graphics.
have circles, you kind of want that. Otherwise, you got to do it on
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to scale it.
I mean, I've used semi-graphics 8, but it's 8 colors. So anyway, I haven't looked at 6
those
properly,
take like a K, 2K of screen, and you can't use regular, basic stuff on it. Here you can kind of fake it a bit.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was a 4-color semi-graphics mode.
Yeah, it takes the same space as a semi-graphics 4. It just that it trades color for resolution. Basically, is what it does. And then the last one here is a Dragon News one. So John Whitworth, who will be on our show next week, along with over a dozen other guests. And he's kind of one of the hardware guys. These guys have been doing the MSX2 Plus board, which will be renamed, and hopefully we'll find out what the real name is going to be for the final product on the show next week. Plug. So one thing they've been having problems with in the Dragon scene is that the Dragon power supply boards, which is the part of the power supply that's inside the Dragon itself, has a tendency to die after some time, and there's not really a replacement for it. And he's got a schematic here that was created by somebody else, and he's got permission from them. This is Phil Harvey Smith, to make a replacement board. So right now what he's trying to find out is how much interest is there in getting some of these boards to be able to manufacture them, because you can get the prices down, of course, with the more boards you get manufactured, same as Pedro was talking about earlier about the CoCo 3 board. The more you buy, the cheaper it gets. So he's going right now, he knows that he can get it for about £33.50 for a kit version, 40 for a full built one. Unfortunately, right now, because of chip shortages and everything else everywhere else, it's got a 6 to 7 week lead time. So if you do need one right away, don't expect to get it for a couple months once you even get some, started manufacturing. But, the Dragons have the same issue that some of the CoCo people have. Certain chips and certain parts of the machine are not replaceable with current parts, which is what Pedro's been trying to, fix up in his CoCo 1-2 design. We're creating the Pepper, a little daughter board that replaces the salt chip type thing. So this is to replace the power supply portion of the motherboard on the Dragon. So if any of you have Dragons out there and are interested in getting a replacement power supply board because you're starting to flake out, or you have one that's bad and the Dragon's dead, please contact John Whitworth on the Dragon Facebook group, or even, mention it to him on the show next week when he's on. And he can kind of gauge, how many to order. Maybe you can get the prices down lower if he gets enough people to order. And that is the end of the news this week.
Awesome.
So quick plug for the next 3 weeks. We've got guests. So next week, of course, is the big Dragon Talk special, which is going to have the regular panel of 15 to 20 people, plus a Dragon panel of 12 to 15 people. Plus, I'm imagining a larger size chat room than normal. It's going to be a long show. It's going to be an awesome show. There's a lot of stuff to talk about: hardware, software, game streaming, all kinds of things that will be happening. The week after that, one of the guests on next week's Dragon show is Stuart Orchard, who's a Dragon game programmer, both from back in the day. He wrote a couple games back in the late 80s. Bulldozer, which is an Arkanoid clone with some extra bits that Arkanoid didn't have. And then he also did, I'm going to abbreviate his Road Tab. It was Return of the Alien Bongo Beasts from the Crossy Line Dimensions. I can't remember the name. Which is kind of a 4-way space shooter flying over a grid. It's got some pretty neat effects in it at different parts of the game, some decent sound routines. And the recent one he's done is Return of the Beast, which if you'd watched the Megathon thing that Nick and Steve and I did for part of the fundraiser for the Miracle Children's Network, we actually played that game because the sound music routine at the beginning is awesome. It's one of the best theme song things I've heard on a CoCo 1, 2/Dragon level machine. The CoCo 3 we know because of extra speed and the gimme timer interrupt can do better than that. But for that level of machine, it's pretty awesome. And it's a smooth scrolling 4-way shoot 'em up. Now he's listed it as a beta. One thing I'll be asking him on the show next week is why does he consider it beta? Because it's a fully playable game and it's scoring. You can die, you can shoot things, you can warp between levels. I don't know if maybe he'd plan to add, big boss aliens or something to it later. Maybe that's why he considers that unfinished. To me, it's a fully playable game as it is. And maybe we can encourage him to quote unquote finish whatever the extra stuff he wanted to do was. So he's going to be our interview guest the week after on the 21st. And of course, we have Glenn Dellinger of Sundog Systems, who programmed a ton of graphical adventure games they did some CoCo 3 specific ones. He did the Hall of the King trilogy series. He also did stuff like Kim Guy to be Ninja that Bill had mentioned earlier that eventually got ported to OS 9. He did Warrior King, Kung Fu Dude, a bunch of others. And he also published on behalf of other authors. He did stuff like Sinistar and Photon and Graphic Express 2.0 and Crystal City and Xenix and a bunch of others. I mean, Sundog was the premier CoCo game company during its last years. I mean, he basically took over from Diecom as being the premier one. So he'll be our guest on the 28th, and he'll also be promoting his new book, his new fantasy novel, which is actually a prequel to the one he showed us on the last time he was on the show. And I will mention we're trying to get a lot of the Dragon guests to come on starting in September as guests too, to give them more time to talk about all the stuff they've done, because some of them have done so much stuff you couldn't fit it in 15 minutes, no way. There's also some other guests we're trying to get on that are not related to the Dragon, and there's at least 2 that I'm talking to right now. I'm not going to announce them until we got anything official on it, but it looks like we're going to have a lot of full-length interviews coming up here, starting next week, but going off into September, October, November, right up through Christmas. We will probably get some every couple of weeks or so is what I'm kind of hoping to do. So keep your eye and ears out for that. There'll be a lot of interesting people to talk to. We'll try to announce them as far ahead as we can so you guys can kind of review the stuff they've done. If you have any questions, it'll give you some time to do it. Now, we'll mention for the Dragon Show next week, because it's going to be such a huge friggin' panel, we're going to have to do things a little bit different as far as taking questions. So we're going to have a huge local panel of all of us regular CoCoTALK people. We're going to have a huge panel of Dragon people. And we're going to have a larger than normal chat room, because people from the Amigo show audience might be showing up. The Dragon audience obviously will be showing up. So I think we're going to have it so that when the people are doing the presenting, we're going to have no interruptions during the actual presentation of whatever they want to talk about. And then we'll have to take the actual questions for them, I think, in 3 chunks. We'll probably start with the fellow Dragon people themselves, because they're the special guests. So we'll give them priority so they can ask. And a lot of these Dragon people don't even know each other, because they're from such different walks of Dragon life. So we'll let them do the first set of questions, and maybe we'll get the chat room questions, and then we'll get the CoCoTALK regular panels. But we'll do it in groups. Those 3 different groups there to help keep it from people talking over each other and just turning it into a schmozzy mess of noise. So it'll be a little bit of a different format than normal because of that. And of course, we'll be stripping a lot of the regular features out just because we're going to be concentrating on this. It's kind of like the Dragon virtual CoCo Fest almost at this point. There'll be some new stuff demo. There'll be some old stuff demo. There'll be talks. We've got Duncan Smeedy, worked from Dragon back in the day and helped port the ROMs over from Microsoft and did them his own custom stuff. So he was involved with Dragon right from the manufacturing side of the software and the ROMs. We've got game streamers. We've got game developers, hardware developers, utility programmers, all kinds of people. So it's going to be a nice variety. So you can get your questions ready for that next week. And any questions for Stuart Orchard on the 3 games he's done? I've got Bulldozer. Now, one thing I will mention, my game site. I've got a couple of the games. We've got at least 3 game developers coming on. We've got Karen Anscombe, who's also in the chat, 60, who's done Dungeons. And what's the one I'm just doing right now? My mind's blanking because I'm doing too much right now. But basically, I got a couple of his games. I've got Steve Bascom, who did Flagenbird and is working on Cersei's Island currently.
Bamford.
What's that?
Bamford.
Bamford?
Steve.
What did I say?
Something else.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Steve Bamford.
Yeah, Bosco. I should have just called him that. And of course, Stuart Orchard himself too. So, I mean, we've got 3 game developers. I've got 2 games out of all of theirs combined, I think, on the site right now. I've actually got 2 more that I've submitted to the authors to kind of review the page. And I've got 2 more to do yet. So I'm hoping to get those all done this weekend. I'll try to make them live by Monday at the latest, so that anybody wants to kind of research their games before they're on the show next week and kind of get that feel for what questions they may want to ask. So check our Discord. I'll announce on there when I've got the page updated. And if you have an RSS feed turned on to the games page, you should get an automatic notification when those pages go live. So get your questions ready. Get your questions ready for Stuart the following week. Get your questions ready for Glenn Dahlgren the following week after that. And we'll keep announcing more guests as we get them booked. Hopefully Atari Leaf took us seriously, because I would like to get him on the show too. Anyway, that's my spiel for now.
Awesome. Cool. Well, we got a couple minutes here. I just wanted to share with you guys some of the stuff that I have been getting off of eBay. So I'm going to give Brian Weasler a run for his money this week.
You sure about that?
Well, I don't know. We'll find out. I got a brand new Arcanoid, brand new in package. One of my favorite games. I got the Flight Simulator 2 with the disc as well. Unfortunately, I don't have the. I guess there's an error you said, Curtis, that I need to get from you. They made a mistake in the publication on the hotkeys.
No, it's an addendum for the CoCo. There's a little single double-sided sheet that has some special extra keys and special extra things unique to the CoCo version.
Okay, cool.
Which came with the package. Now, did you get both books with it? Because there's the actual manual and there's also the flight handbook, which came with the original package.
Nope, just got the one little thin book with it, unfortunately. So.
Okay.
I got the Phantom Graph, brand new in package as well. And then this one here, I think a lot of people have been looking for, which is the 6809. What is it? The Assembly Language Programming by Lance Leventhal.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's pretty hard to come by.
Yours is in much better shape than mine. Mine has been used so much it's pretty well falling apart at this point.
Right.
All right. Then I also have the Rainbow Book of Simulations. Got that as well too. Unfortunately, I only got the. I think this is the first version of it too. I think there's like 3. Is that correct, Curtis?
Sorry, what was that? I was reading a comment.
I think there's 3 of these, and I only got the first one. So.
Yeah, the second one's yellow for the simulation. Actually, was there a third simulation? I can't remember. There's 4 adventure books. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 simulation books.
I don't know.
There was only 2.
Was there only 2? Okay. And then I also have Facemaker, which I think was for the CoCo 1 and 2 16K. And then I also have Home Publisher, brand new in a box as well. And then Basic 09, brand new in a box as well. Well, not brand new, but in a box.
Yeah, that's the level 1 version because it came bundled with level 2.
Exactly. So hopefully I beat Brian Weasler for the week. Since he's not here, I did definitely beat him. So.
Also, there's a correction from the chat here from multiple people pointing out how wrong I am.
Uh-oh.
So Jim Gary and Sixie Kieran all mentioned that well, technically the Semigraphic 6 does support the 4 colors, as I said. The way it's implemented on the CoCo and on the MC10, it actually only does 2. So once again, Tandy being cheap, they didn't put a couple extra wires. It might have cost him a penny or 2. So it's a little bit crippled from the what the chip's actually capable of doing. As Jim Gary said, yep, SG6 is a little hobbled on the CoCo and the MC10, just a few more wires. Sad face.
Oh, so it's only on the MC10 that limitation of 4 colors or 2 colors.
Well, he's saying on the CoCo too, so I'm.
Oh, okay. Now I'm confused.
You must say CoCo as well.
Yeah, the Barden graphics book covers Semigraphics 6 and its color limitations and why. So it has something to do with the inverse bit being used for inverse and everything else as well. So there's just not enough room for the VGG signals that were needed. So yeah, annoying. So you can get like blue and yellow in one mode and magenta and orange in the other mode. Highly useful color palettes. So
yeah, I don't understand why you've only got 2 colors in that mode, yet if you go to Semigraphics 8, you do get 8 colors.
The inverse bit got used instead of the next bit for the rest of the color.
Yeah, 60 saying 6 bits dedicated to the pixel data, 1 bit selects graphics mode, and leaving only 1 bit for color selection.
Yeah, so if you want square pixels, go with Semigraphics 12 and draw them twice. And then you get the 9 colors.
Okay, or Semigraphics 8 does that automatically as one per.
Yeah, 8's good.
Anyway, thanks for the correction. I always love being proven wrong live on air. So
Oh, our pleasure.
I'm used to it. Trust me.
You deserve it.
Well, I think Curtis is always wrong, right?
Pretty much.
Those damn Canadians.
We're polite about it, though.
Exactly.
Sorry.
All right. Was there anything else that we need to discuss before we end the show for this week?
Did anybody else have any acquisitions or little minor project updates I didn't get to mention on the first chunk?
I actually forgot to mention one thing on my new graphics library.
Sure.
I'm actually looking at Dynasprite right now, and I'm finding a lot of things from Dynasprite that I can actually port into this new graphic engine. So,
oh, cool.
Be on the lookout for that.
All right. Awesome.
Well, after we do all our big interviews here, we'll have to have you back on to demo it.
Yes.
Go ahead, Garrett.
All right. Awesome. Anybody else have anything else before we push the button?
60 said he's glad to be of service in proving me wrong. So thanks for that.
All right. Well, we will see you guys, everybody, back next week, same time, same place, for the huge 17-hour-long Dragon Show.
Yeah, make sure you have your adult diapers handy because you don't want to miss a minute of it. So, or you just live stream like Grant does.
Oh, thanks a lot. And L. Curtis Boyle will be providing lunch and dinner for everybody that watches the show that week.
You have to come up here to get it, though.
Oh, no. All right, we will see you guys next week for the Dragon Special. Otherwise, you guys have a great week, and till next time.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk@CoCoTalk.live. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click on the Patreon link on our website, CoCoTalk.live. CoCoTalk would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Alan Murphy, Bill Noble, Brian Joyce, Brian Weasler, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Danny O'Connor, David Ladd, Eric Canales, Grant Leedy, James Diffendaffer, Jason Reichard, Jim Brain, Ken Reichard, Mark Bosley, Mark Overholzer, Mikey Furman, Mr. Dave 6309, Nick Marentes, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Paul Fiscarelli, Richard Lorbieski, Rick Adams, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Ron Delvaux, Samuel Gimes, Sloopy Malibu, Steve Bjork, Terry Steggy, Tom C., and many more. Please help support the CoCo community. A list of various contributors and resources are available at imacoconut.com. That's imacoconut.com. The original CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. The new CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2020 by D. Bruce Moore. Both are mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. CoCo forever, people!